Okay, picture this. You're sitting right at your desk, staring blankly at your screen. You know exactly what you need to do. You know how incredibly important it is, and yet you pick up your phone, you open an app, and suddenly, boom, 2 entire hours have just vanished into thin air. Listen, if that sounds familiar, you are absolutely not alone. Welcome to this explainer on what I call the procrastination paradox. Today, we're breaking down a deeply fascinating and, let's be honest, wildly frustrating reality of human behavior. Knowing exactly what we need to achieve, but somehow choosing to do absolutely nothing. You already know what you should do, so why don't you do it? Man, it's a question that usually comes with a massive dose of guilt, right? We tell ourselves we lack discipline, or that we're just lazy, or maybe we just don't want it badly enough. But right here, right now, I want to completely absolve you of that guilt. Procrastination, it is not a moral failing. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, and it actually doesn't even mean you are uniquely lazy. The truth is way more fascinating, and it goes back thousands and thousands of years. You see, your brain is first and foremost a survival machine. And for millions of years of human evolution, survival literally meant conserving energy. Food was scarce, danger was everywhere. So your biological default is completely optimized for immediate comfort, to save calories. When you choose the couch over the gym or doom scrolling over that massive spreadsheet, your brain actually thinks it's doing you a huge favor. It is hoarding your precious energy to help you run away from a saber-toothed tiger that, well, isn't actually coming. It's an ancient survival feature that's basically acting like a massive bug in our modern world. So to really understand how this works, we need to look under the hood of human psychology. Section 1. Your brain's two systems. This whole concept comes directly from the brilliant Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, detailed in his landmark book, Thinking Fast and Slow. He explains that our mind doesn't just have one single unified voice making decisions. Instead, it operates through two totally different competing agents that are constantly vying for control over what we do next. Think of these as two completely different characters living inside your head. System 1 is fast, automatic, and highly impulsive. It is pure reflex. It's the voice that instantly knows the answer to 2 plus 2 or effortlessly reads a billboard while you're driving without you even trying. If a car suddenly swerves into your lane, System 1 yanks that steering wheel before you even consciously realize what's happening. It's totally effortless. System 2, on the other hand, is your slow, deliberate, highly analytical self. It's the voice you have to call on when you're trying to multiply 17 by 24 in your head, or trying to learn a new language, or forcing yourself to type out a really difficult diplomatic email. System 2 is capable of incredible complex things, but it has one major flaw. It requires intense mental energy and actual physical calories to operate. And that leads us to this profound realization from Kahneman. Laziness is built deep into our nature. Because System 2 is just so exhausting to use, your brain operates on what psychologists call the law of least effort. If there are multiple ways to get something done or multiple things you could be doing right now, your brain naturally gravitates to the one that demands the absolute least amount of energy. Imagine it's Friday night. You could cook this complex, healthy meal with fresh ingredients, which, requires System 2 to read a recipe and measure things out. Or you could tap a glowing screen twice and have a hot pizza delivered right to your door. Biologically speaking, your brain strongly prefers the pizza. It saves mental calories. Thinking deliberately is literally exhausting. So, by default, your brain happily hands the steering wheel right back to the impulsive, comfort-seeking System 1. Which brings us to Section 2, why dopamine always wins. If our biology is hardwired to take the path of least resistance, our modern environment is perfectly, almost ruthlessly designed to weaponize this biological laziness against us. This biological vulnerability gets hardwired into our daily lives through a process popularized by author Charles Duhigg. He calls it the habit loop. Every habit you have consists of 3 parts. First, the cue. Let's say you're at your desk, you get a ping from your boss, and you feel this sudden wave of stress. Or maybe you're just sitting in a waiting room feeling a little bored. Second comes the routine. Instead of tackling the hard project or just sitting quietly with your thoughts, which requires that exhausting System 2, System 1 takes over. You mindlessly open a social media app, you scroll, you grab a sugary cookie. Finally, the reward. You get an immediate, completely unearned spike of dopamine. Your brain logs this crucial piece of information. Okay. Next time we feel stressed, scrolling on our phone makes the pain go away instantly. Modern technology and junk food are literally training your System 1 to relentlessly seek instant gratification over your long-term goals. This creates a really tragic internal tug-of-war that psychologists call temporal discounting. Your present self is completely dominant in the heat of the moment. It desperately wants immediate comfort, entertainment, and stress relief right now. Your future self is the one that actually wants long-term success, a healthy body, a rich savings account, and, a finished novel. But temporal discounting basically means we place an irrationally high value on rewards we can get today, and we deeply, deeply discount the value of rewards in the future. Just think about night you versus morning you. Night you is incredibly ambitious. Night you sets an alarm for 5 a.m. to wake up, go for a run, and conquer the world. But when that alarm actually goes off, morning you just wants to hit snooze and stay under those warm covers. In a battle of pure willpower, the present self is almost always going to overrule the future self's best interests. So let's talk about Section 3, the myth of discipline. Because if our biology is totally rigged to seek instant comfort, and our modern world is just packed with digital dopamine traps, then relying on the fleeting feeling of motivation is a guaranteed losing game. Motivation is just an emotion, and like all emotions, happiness, sadness, anger, it vanishes the second things get hard. Think of an ancient charioteer violently gripping the reins of these wild, powerful horses just to keep them on the path. That perfectly encapsulates the philosophy of author Ryan Holiday. True discipline isn't about waking up at 4 a.m. feeling incredibly inspired and motivated to take on the world. That's a toxic myth pushed by internet hustle culture. The most successful people, the ones who actually achieve their future self's goals, they do not wait for inspiration to strike. They rely on heavily grooved, repetitive, and honestly, almost boring daily routines. As Holiday points out, it's just about showing up and trying, doing something, anything, every single day. Just running 1 mile, just writing 1 paragraph. Character and behavior are inextricably linked. You build the character by doing the behavior over and over, regardless of how you happen to feel that day. Discipline is destiny. It decides, will you choose it? We so often view discipline as a punishment, don't we? We see it as a restriction of our freedom, this rigid cage that stops us from having fun. But Holiday argues the exact opposite. Because your natural biological default is laziness, entropy, and following the path of least resistance, discipline is actually the only tool that unlocks real freedom. Without it, you aren't free at all. You are merely a slave to your impulses, your phone notifications, and your endlessly fluctuating moods. Moving on to Section 4, Embracing the Resistance. If we know discipline is the key, how do historical masters and world-class experts actually conquer the urge to procrastinate when they're faced with the sheer dread of hard work? How do they get past that magnetic desire to just open a new tab and watch a video? Author Robert Greene explores this deeply in his book Mastery, introducing this really cool concept called resistance practice. Greene explains that amateurs try to avoid boredom and frustration at all costs. The second something gets tedious, they quit. But masters, they do the exact opposite. They actively embrace the tedium. Look, when you sit down to learn a new skill, whether it's coding, playing the piano, or writing a script, the initial stages are invariably boring, frustrating, and painful. But Greene argues that this psychological pain is exactly like physical exercise for your mind. If you lift heavy weights, your muscles tear and grow stronger. The urge you feel to quit and check your phone, that is the resistance. Every single time you feel that deep boredom, but you actively choose to stare at the screen and do the work anyway, you are quite literally toughening your mind. And here is the secret that the masters know. Trust the process. The panic, the frustration, the mind-numbing boredom of starting a difficult task, it is entirely normal. Everyone feels it, even the absolute experts. But if you have the discipline to just sit in that discomfort, to not run away, and to push past the initial friction, the boredom eventually fades. It gives way to a state of flow. That's that magical state where you lose track of time, the work actually feels effortless, and the skill becomes deeply embedded in your nervous system. Pushing past that initial wall of friction isn't just a hurdle, it is the absolute secret to mastering any skill and beating procrastination for good. Okay, Section 5, 3 practical changes. How do we actually implement this in our messy, chaotic daily lives? Let's bring all this high-level psychology down to earth with some actionable strategies to override our biological defaults. We need to proactively train our habits so our automatic responses actually align with our long-term goals. Tactic number 1, make starting ridiculously easy. Use the 2-minute rule. Don't tell yourself you need to write a 10-page essay. The mere thought of that will send System 1 into a full-blown panic. Tell yourself you only have to open a document and write one single sentence. You completely bypass your brain's alarm bells because the task seems so laughably small it requires zero effort. Tactic 2, remove friction from good habits. If you want to run in the morning, put your running shoes right next to your bed the night before. Sleep in your gym clothes if you have to. Make doing the right thing the absolute path of least resistance. Tactic 3. Design your environment instead of relying on willpower. Willpower is a function of System 2, and we know System 2 gets tired very quickly. So put your phone in another room while you work. Install website blockers. Make your bad habits incredibly hard to do and your good habits incredibly easy. And the golden rule of habit change comes right back to that loop we discussed earlier. You can't just magically erase procrastination from your brain. The cue, the stress, the boredom, the fatigue is always going to happen. You cannot erase the cue. But as DeHick points out, you absolutely must hack the routine. When you feel that wave of stress, instead of retreating into the old routine of doom scrolling, you intentionally force yourself into a new routine. You take a 5-minute walk, you do a 2-minute breathing exercise, or you just drink a glass of water to get that same feeling of relief. You keep the cue, you keep the reward, but you completely change the behavior in the middle. You have to actively hack your own system. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to genuinely reflect on your daily struggles, specifically the ones that happen when absolutely no one else is watching, when you fail to hit your goals, when you put off that passion project for the 10th day in a row. Who are you really fighting? It's not a lack of time. Everyone has 24 hours. It's not that the work is completely impossible. The biggest battle isn't against the world. It's against the version of yourself that always wants comfort. That is the ultimate takeaway here. Your biology wants you to rest. Your modern environment wants you endlessly distracted and docile. But your destiny is determined by your discipline. Stop waiting for motivation to strike, start actively designing your environment, and intentionally lean into the resistance. Because the life you truly want is sitting on the exact opposite side of that comfort. So I leave you with this. When you close this explainer and face your very next task, which version of you is going to grab the steering wheel?